Welcome everybody back here at Veil of Sound for another round of our surprise week, middle of a week interviews. No, this time we're not talking with one of the amazing pelagic artists, but I have something here for you that everybody who has got any kind of blood in himself for post-hardcore, you should really be listening now because I got a very promising bunch here. I got two guys from Indifferent Engine. So guys, thanks for joining.
Yeah, no worries.
That's right. Thanks for having us.
So Alex and Adam, maybe you first tell everybody what you specifically are doing in the band.
So I'm the lead singer, and I play guitar in the studio.
I am the bassist, and I also do synths and tapes and other bits live as well.
It's good that the two of them already hint at synths and bits and everything, because they are, it's hard to say. I would say they're fallen a little out of time. And I'll also explain why. The guys have a modern soundscape. Indifferent Engine sounds clearly like 2025. But the song structures, guys, that could be 20, 30 years old. There is a lot of early post-hardcore in that. Is that also something that you generally listen to?
Yeah, I think so. Like, there's a lot of that kind of like early 2000s post-hardcore thing going on, and that's definitely when I started the project. A lot of what I was trying to do was recreate elements of that sound, and but hopefully we're kind of taking it somewhere new and melding in a lot of other influence. But we certainly tend to stay with quite simplistic song structures and try to bring in the kind of progressive element.
Okay, now the last bit got me back there, because I would say not all of the structures are easy and simple. You know, there are, especially when you look at the album as a whole, there are lots of different things on there, and there are lots of different things where you say like, okay, that could be, for example, Thursday, or that could be the Deftones, that could be at the Drive-In, something like that. And all those bands are not particularly well known for making simple pedal to the metal, free chord punk rock songs, which you also don't do. But let us first of all talk a little bit about the development of the band. So, Adam, if I understood it correctly, you yourself started Indifferent Engine as a one-man band. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it must be about 10 years ago now. I just wanted to start writing music and putting music out, and so I just started doing that. And initially I was finding friends, and I think the first release I did, I used a session singer. So I hired someone to do the vocal parts of my tracks and got them recorded and released and all that kind of stuff. And then after a while, I just kind of started thinking this would be a lot easier and cheaper if I could do the singing myself. So I kind of just started doing that stuff. And then eventually, the idea was to make it an actual band that I could take out and play shows with. And so, over many years, it took quite a long time. It kind of slowly got the people together and built it into the band that it is now. And now it's it's kind of completely different now from when I started out, but just has kind of become this kind of organic thing that has kind of taken on a life of its own, really, through the other people that have come in and the influence that they've brought with them and things. So it's it's been quite a long road getting to here, but I feel like it's nice to we're a few days out from having our first album out as a band, and it's good. It feels like it's been a lot of work, but it's been worth it.
To make it clear for everybody, when you are listening to this at the beginning of June, the record came out last Friday, March 30th, and I think nobody has an excuse not to listen to it or to put a pre-order in, because in Europe and the UK, you're on Church Road Records, which we'll talk about in a moment, and in the US, you have an even bigger partner with Death Wish. How did it come that you got two of the most prominent hardcore labels to release your stuff?
So we linked up with Church Road. I really don't know how that happened. I think it was like partially just luck and partially like like our producer Tom like kind of just knows lots of people, and I think he was telling people about us, and it kind of like I think they heard about us through that, and it kind of like got us part of the way there. But I think the Death Wish thing is because Church Road have a distro deal with Church Road with
most of a Church Road stuff is distributed by Death Wish. I'm not sure if it's all of it. Oh.
Yeah, I don't know actually, but I think that's how that came about. I think they have an existing relationship, so it's again just kind of lucky for us, really. Like
and it fits. It fits. I think Death Wish being one of those hardcore labels who also is not afraid to put out stuff that's unusual. To make it clear, because I forgot to ask that before. So, Alex, when did you join this little project here by Adam?
Probably about 6.5 years ago. I think it was. We had a good kind of 18-month run as a 4-piece before COVID hit. So kind of since about then, and then it's just kind of been pretty. The main 4 of us has been pretty stable since then.
It's interesting that you mentioned COVID, because I've read up and while doing my research, I've read up that the band nearly broke, and I think one of you guys said that at one point or another, everybody at one point or another quit the band. Is that true? Is that only COVID, or is there more to that?
No, that wasn't COVID. That was just us. I think just being a bit mental. No, I think it was just we had this period between like we went in the studio and did the first half of the record, and it went well. We got some really good. I think some of the best tracks came out of that session. But then afterwards, it was this like kind of strange thing of for me, it was like almost like relief that we did it, but then this massive lingering thing of we don't have enough to put out a record yet. We have to go and do all this again. And it just being, how much effort it took to get to that point, and knowing you've got to go and do all that over again. And I think like the stress of all that just like really like ground me down. And I know at one point I rage quit over like, I just don't want to put in this amount of effort anymore. It's just getting too much to do all this work. And I think Ali quit at some point, our drummer. I can't remember what that was about, but I think it was driven by the same thing. Basically, it's just this like.
Or you wanted to bring up a song, and everybody said like, no, drummer song.
It's nothing like that. Like it's a lot more just. There's nothing actually wrong. Like none of us have any actual problem with. It's just the sheer like. I mean, because we put in like an insane amount of work into our tracks and into our production and into like our stage show and like So, if we're trying to work towards recording and we've also got live shows, it's very hard for us because we drill our live set so much, and we've got all the prep for, doing all the logistics for our shows and stuff because of, our show has a lot more equipment than most shows ordinarily would. And that kind of thing. And it just, the kind of drain on our time and our brain to make all that work while still also trying to write songs.
Where he's lost somehow.
Yeah, I think it's just the music's so emotional, and like to perform that, you have to put so much.
Running a band and all that stuff, it just kind of ground us all down.
Oh, there he's back again.
We just kind of like, yeah. But so I think it was like there was nothing actually wrong. We just imploded like multiple times for no reason.
but let's come back to the sheer amount of logistics that is involved into your live sets, because everybody who's looking carefully, you will see behind Adam some of the reasons why the live set is complicated. I see a lot of very old TVs around there, and for the kids around there, back 20-30 years ago, TVs were not flat. Like your notebook, and those were huge, chunky things, So, are those three of the examples that you use on stage?
I've actually I've got loads of them in here. I've got
a
whole bunch down there, and then I've got more out in the other room. and yeah, just lots of them. And
A wet dream of a 1980s CCTV engineer, right?
yeah, yeah, I guess so. But yeah, it's just it's like it adds a huge amount to the show, and um, and we always try to do it as often as we can, taking all our kit or as much as we can kind of squeeze into the venue. But yeah, it's just like requires quite a lot more logistics to get everything moved, and then just turning up with amps and drums and stuff. We've got all this other stuff we've got to move as well, and it's just yeah, it's like moving house every time you play a show. So,
but then the question is, and I think that is very important. Are these just props on stage, or are they really programmed in a way that they deliver something to the show?
no, they're props. Like, we haven't been in a situation yet where we can really do anything really interesting with them yet. I think like we've talked about it internally about different ideas of what we could do in terms of visuals, but the issue we have is oftentimes the turnaround times for sets don't allow us enough time to actually be able to. So there are some things we've talked about maybe being able to make that happen, but yeah, it's currently we don't have a place where we can do a show like that. But yeah, it might be something we do in the future. Plus, a lot of these are so old that some of them they literally won't show a picture anyway. It's just you'll get a picture for like 5 minutes and then it will start rolling as the tube heats up, and yeah, the electronics are knackered, and there's only so much time I have to fix things. So so if we can play static, that's all we need.
But then, Alex, maybe something for you as well. Like if you have so many things on stage and in front of stage and wherever, does that also, I don't want to say implement, but does it also in some way hinder your on-stage performance in a way? Like
it has done.
Yeah,
there's been a couple of shows where Adam's been going full on it, and he'll like tangle his mic cable around my foot or around my bass and then around a TV and then run off into the crowd, and like just everything falls over and I'm there like having to try and keep up with it. And but I think that kind of it just kind of adds an extra layer of chaos to it when stuff like that happens. Generally I think we've just all kind of learned to work around like right, rather than having to worry about stepping on monitors or stepping on cables, there's just another extra box next to it that we have to be careful not to kick off the stage. So
lots of duct tape.
Lots of duct tape.
Yeah.
You've spoken about, like complicating things a little bit or a little bit more chaos. That is also in a way reflective in your music. I think one of the essential things that you took from post-hardcore is a certain level of unpredictability. Is that important for you to have a soundscape or sound universe that is unpredictable? Most people don't know what they will hear in the next few minutes.
Yeah, I think so. We tend to stitch our sets together when we play live with kind of like quasi improvised sections where until we started trying to promote the album, we used to change those as often as possible. So if we had a set of 2 or 3 shows coming up, we would try to rewrite the interludes, and we would come up with we do like monologues over kind of like improvised music, and we would try to come up with new monologues and new music and just try to make it something different from what people had seen before. I think now that we're kind of trying to do like full album playthrough shows, we've kind of like solidified it a little bit more. But I think I'm quite keen to kind of get to a point where we're back to kind of like doing something, a bit kind of improvised and a bit unexpected, and trying to kind of like keep people kind of guessing as to what we're going to do. And I think Alex is quite a big driving part of that as well, because he tends to come up with a lot of the soundscape that we kind of like build everything else off of the top of. So
that would have been my next question, Alex, for you. So you add certain elements here and there, and where do you get them from? I mean, like some of them are samples, some of them are noise elements, however you want to call them. How do you come across those?
A lot of it's just kind of a lot of the samples and stuff is spending a lot of time on archive.org, watching watching kind of pulpy B movies, trying to find anything that's kind of interesting or any kind of small bits are exciting. Adam's watched an awful lot of kind of there's one documentary from the 80s about kind of the introduction of the information age and how things are evolving, and so many of the samples we used on our last EP and we still use in our live set are like have come directly from that documentary, because it's such an engaging documentary, and it's such like a prescient take on like how the internet has evolved, and the way that just a sociologist in the mid 80s has just kind of clicked onto that. Musically, I'm a big kind of early 2000s Warp Records guy, so I'm a big Boards of Canada fan. I'm a big Aphex Twin fan. That kind of that warm, wobbly synth I really like, and I just kind of try and build as much stuff off of that sort of sound as I can. And then a lot of the album stuff as well was Adam kind of building on stuff with tape machines and kind of just layering tape loops and doing really exciting stuff with that.
So we already know that you, Alex, add some of the soundscapes. We know that Adam originally started the band, but how must we envision the songwriting process for Indifferent Engine nowadays?
I think it's kind of like different now than it was when we were writing the album, and different again from when it was earlier. When it first started out, I was kind of like delivering just here's a song. I would just deliver a demo, and there's the song, and we're going to learn it and we're going to play it, and there would be a little bit of other people then being like, oh, this bit would be better if it was slightly different. But by and large, the songs were kind of like, 95% there's the song, and that would be how it was. And then slowly it kind of became more collaborative, I think. Like I started delivering more like skeletons of songs. So like, here's a verse and a chorus, here's like something that could be a bridge, or I'd just kind of sketch out ideas, and then other people would kind of fill in the blanks. And now I think that by and large, we're kind of trying to do, like, there was one track in particular on the album where we kind of wrote it very organically. Like, it grew out of what was originally an interlude that we used to do between other tracks. It was Bit Crush. And eventually we kind of like decided we liked it enough that, we should make this actually a song, because it's actually really good. And that just because it was, nobody really kind of claimed ownership over it. We were just kind of coming up with the bits just freeform, as kind of in an improvised way, that it just came out a lot more interesting and sound a lot more like us, is the only way I can really.
Yep.
And so we're trying to kind of write more like that now, I think. And there's a lot more, we're trying to do a lot more in the room. I think we still need to find a methodology that works consistently enough and quickly enough that we can make enough material that way. But it's definitely like the things that come out of it are better than if just one of us goes and writes things. And also Ellis is like delivering things for the band as well now. Like he wrote 2 of the songs almost, I think, entirely on his own. 2 of the tracks that hit this album. So like, I've kind of like, I think originally I was like the lead songwriter, and now I've kind of like stepped away from that, and other people are kind of like bringing a lot more in, and I'm trying to kind of be hands off as much as I can, because I think if I was to keep on just writing songs, it'll just become, I'll just keep writing the same song over and over. It'll be just the same thing, and like I don't have any intention to retread that stuff. So it's like, I think it's kind of important, I think, for us as a band to
otherwise the other guys would just be like studio session musicians, right?
Yeah. And the songs just wouldn't be very good, because I think one person can only have so many ideas, right? Like, I think you have to kind of like allow other people to come in and kind of have their kind of input into things. Otherwise, as I say, you just keep writing the same song over and over. So I think it definitely worked for this album to kind of try and be a bit more kind of a bit more of a group, rather than me trying to kind of
and also some kind of multifaceted thing, right? We've already spoken about lots of complicated things and lots of work you put into it, but seemingly all of that is not enough for you guys, because if I understood it correctly, Alex, you did the visuals for speculative fiction for the record. True?
Yeah, and honestly, that a lot of that came out of necessity more than anything else. We spent so much money on the studio and the production, and it kind of got to the end of the runway and just went, well, we need to put something on the cover. So.
But have you had any experience in doing something like that before?
I've done kind of digital video stuff in the past, and I've done stuff for our backdrops. Really interested in kind of programmatic art and quite organic stuff. So a lot of the visual stuff I was doing is very like sound reactive and ephemeral, and a lot of kind of random noise, and it evolves in a way that's feels quite organic for digital art. And but this is kind of the first big let's do everything, let's teach myself, or let's do a lot of research into like how layouts look, and kind of I've got a big stack of CDs on my desk next to me here, which I was just going through throughout the whole time, and it took way longer than it would have done if we just hired somebody to do it for us. But so
if you say you have a huge stack of CDs right next to you, then of course I have to ask, which one is the favorite one cover wise?
I've got a copy of The Queen is Dead here, and I used this more, I think, than anything else in terms of, because it was like it's a nice gatefold. It's got this like great picture of just like the dude in the Smith shirt at the riot in the middle. It's just really exciting, kind of the composition on it all. And I think that's the one I used the most for like, cool, how big is text on these things? How much space have I got to work with on here? If we're putting so much effort into the visual side of it, what's the approach that I should be thinking about?
Yeah, for everybody who doesn't know, The Queen is Dead is I think one of the B-side or song collections of the Smiths.
Second album, I think. Full album.
Full album, when I'm mistaken.
Yeah.
When I'm mistaken for another one. But interesting that you use that one as an example. And I've heard, again, to make things a little bit more complicated, Mr. Vocalist over here designed a video game for the band. Is that correctly?
Yeah, I'm still working on it actually, but yeah, I built like a playable game and then used that to make the music video for our lead single. And yeah, that was quite a lot of fun, but quite a lot of work. But yeah, that was great. It was like, again, we didn't really have any money to do like video production, and like I kind of wanted to do something a bit left field anyway with our video, so I thought, I'll just make a video game and we'll put the band in the game and then use that to make the video somehow. And it just kind of like, I started working on it one day and then it just happened. I don't know, just, yeah, it's how most of the stuff we do happens. I don't ever remember like deciding that's exactly what we're going to do. It just happened somehow. So yeah. But
you were just there with all of the assets, and you just text me being like, I might just put this out, to be honest.
Yeah. Because I ended up just building like it, because I started off thinking, oh, well, I could just like rip the sprites from the old like Afterburner games and stuff and just do something in, animation or something. But I thought, well, it's probably easier to actually, because I make video games in my day job, it's easier for me to just build a little playable prototype that I could then just render the frames out from. That was probably quicker than hand animating it all. So I ended up doing that. And then I just ended up just taking it further and further until it got to the point that I actually have like a playable game that you can play. So we might as well put it out. So I'm just kind of like deciding at what point it's done, like how much of it to build. Like we've kind of got like an Afterburner section of the game where you can fly the plane and shoot things, and there's like bosses and things like that. But like I started building a bit that was inspired by like Desert Strike, and I thought, I'd quite like to get some of like Super Thunderblade in there as well, and like just started building all these other bits. And so it's like, yeah, I don't really have like a solid timeline of like, it's going to come out by this date, because I'm just kind of like following my inspiration to like where it feels fun to kind of take it, and until I kind of get bored, and then I'll just put it out. But yeah, it's kind of like quite fun.
But is it as long as the record or as long as one of the songs?
Oh, the game?
Yeah. The
Yeah,
playtime.
the playtime, the playtime on the bit that's done at the minute is probably about 20, 25 minutes, something like that. So it's not like massive. But I'm hoping with I'll get to somewhere like an hour, hour and a half of playtime, and then maybe have some like challenges and things that will like kind of like make a bit of replay value and that kind of thing. I'm trying not to overthink it too much, to be honest, because I tend to like feature creep and just start like, how about we do all this crazy stuff? Like I remember Alex talking about doing like, let's do a Doom section of the game where you go down into
Alex, sounds a little bit like ADHD, right?
Yeah, maybe.
But last thing, and I hope I read it correctly. You're also thinking about doing your own pedals and selling those. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, we've done some pedal stuff in the past. We did like a tape echo that we put out.
Yeah.
But we sold those as like kits that people build themselves. So the whole thing's open source, so you can kind of go and get all the parts, and you can 3D print them and do all the electronics yourself. And we started selling kits for those a while back, but we haven't been offering those for a while because it just became so much work to like put the kits together that it was like we can't finish our record if we.
Yeah, it could also be procrastination instead of ADHD. That's true. Yeah, it could also be that. However, at the same time, I mean, like as jokingly as we talk about it, it shows a band whose level of creativity seems not limitless, because everything has a limit, and one of the limits is time. If the other is money, and the third is willingness to sacrifice. But it seems as if there is a lot of love and affection for that band inside your circle, isn't it? Is it now your main leisure time focus outside of day jobs and family?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, for me it is.
Yeah, and it's starting to, especially like now we're, at release time and we're able a little bit of time off at the start of this year after we finished the recording, just to or towards the end of last year, once everything was done and ready. Yeah, and it's now kind of time to start defrosting and like kind of put all of our effort back into it again. So
and then I think we've talked a lot about the things apart and outside of the music. So let's talk about the music, because I think we haven't done that enough. I sat down and I wrote down 6 bands that to me are, in a way, let's say, patrons for the Indifferent Engine sound. And you both just say whether you agree or disagree. Let's start off with the first one that I thought of, and that was because of the intro. The first band that I really thought of was the Deftones.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable to say. I know that both myself and Ellis are into different eras of Deftones stuff, but definitely like I was quite a big fan of Koi no Yoke, and like I thought that was just a beautiful album, especially like the kind of slower, more mellow tracks like Rosemary are just really, really beautiful tracks.
It's always interesting when I'm talking to people of your age, and I once again feel like the old grandpa who says like, "The White Pony." Yeah, I can see that. I can see the Koi no Yakan comparison, but to me it would be a lot more like White Pony. Less the first 2 records, but that one, that would be definitely my comparison.
Yeah, I think that's like Ellis would probably he's a lot more into the earlier stuff, so I think that would probably be what he would say. But go on, Alex.
Yeah, I know Ali and I are both kind of self-titled and ohms and kind of the later sort of stuff. So yeah.
Another band from California, but a little bit more to the west, less Sacramento, more Orange County. Thrice.
Yeah, I actually don't really know them. I only know Thrice through, I think Amulets did a remix of one of their tracks that was really just ridiculously good. But I've never gotten around to actually listening to the band, but I'm sure Alex probably
Alex, you are
No,
nodding.
I think I saw them supporting Coheed and Cambria once, and
Yeah.
I was probably like 17 at the time, and it just passed me by. So it's a lot of people have been saying there's Thrice comparisons, so I think I'm gonna have to go do some homework after this.
If you want to do your homework, then the record that I would compare it to would be a record called Veishu, VHEISSU. That would be my comparison. Um, you see, being the old nerd, I of course stick to old bands. So I'll give you two bands from the American East Coast. First Day from New
Oh
Jersey.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. We're big Thursday fans. Yeah. Ali in particular, our drummer, he's like, I think they're one of his like top 5 bands or something. He's a massive Thursday fan. But yeah, I think we all are, aren't we? I know Ellis is as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
great band.
To make it clear, Adam, there is like, I don't know why, but to me, there is a similarity in intonation between the way that Jeff does it on especially Full Collapse and you do it on this record. That is probably just a coincidence, but is that something that you would take as a compliment?
I definitely would take that as a compliment. I think he's one of the singers that like, because I remember when I started out, like at all, like I was like horrifically bad singer, and it took quite a lot of work to like get to a point where I can like fool people into thinking that I can sing now. But like I'm quite like limited in my singing ability. But like I remember watching one of the things that gave me a bit more confidence with it was I was watching, I think it was a documentary about Thursday, and I remember like Jeff was saying like, oh, they used to call me Tone Jeff because I couldn't sing or something. And like, it's like, well, if people said that about him and he's a brilliant singer, then like I must be able to like just put some work in and yeah, get part of the way there. And so like, it's definitely like one of those singers that I think about when I'm trying to like, trying to kind of like do more of the melodic stuff because that's what I'm so weak at that part of my singing that like yeah I'm trying to kind of emulate a lot of singers that of just records that I've listened to that I really liked, and Thursday is definitely one of those.
The next band, and also there's also some like some of the a little more unstructured first day stuff, but I also sometimes hear in Indifferent Engine. The next comparison, however, is more for Alex, I think, because it's one of those hardcore bands which has a little bit of hip hop or of funk to them, and especially in the bass lines. Glassjaw.
Mm. Yeah, Ellis is a massive Glassjaw fan. Yeah, Ellis, our guitarist, is a big Glassjaw guy. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if some of that's kind of crept in from him. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom was as well. I think he's a big Glassjaw fan. We all ended up going to that there when they played in London. Like, when was that? Was that last year?
I think 2 years ago.
Yeah.
One. And the next two are more difficult, and I don't know why. You have nothing in common with the wave bands of the early 2010s. It's not as if you sound like Touche Amore or Pianos Become a Thief, or maybe Pianos Become a Thief, but less my idea. My idea was La Dispute. And that is, again, because of your lyrics, not lyrics, your delivery, Adam. There is always room for a certain monologue, certain spoken word part that is similar to what La Dispute does. How come that you integrate so much, or not so much, that you integrate spoken word into your performance?
I think it's because I kind of get a chance to do something a bit more like lyrically loose. Like if you're trying to do like melodic vocal parts, then you're a lot more restrained by your singing capability,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
But also like the lines have to fit in some melodic way over the music. Whereas if you're kind of doing things that are more spoken word, there's a lot more freedom, like rhythmically, where you can put things and how lines can fall over the music. And so it kind of frees you up to write lines that are a bit kind of like lyrically more interesting, I think. And I think that that's something that like spending a lot of time really agonizing over lyrics is something that I do anyway. So it was kind of just made sense to really kind of, if I'm not, massively confident with my singing capability, then it makes more sense to kind of put my kind of focus into, well, let's make sure the lyrics are like, yeah, really, really good, and spend a lot of time working on that. It also means I can kind of like do a lot of like improvisation stuff live, where if I say lines at the wrong time or in different places, then it doesn't matter because we're just kind of improvising the whole thing anyway. So it kind of like, is quite like artistically freeing in the context of our live show. And I'm just quite good at that like spoken word stuff and kind of like articulating it rather than kind of like, I think that's what my strength is really as a singer, rather than kind of like traditional kind of approach. And so yeah, again, it just kind of makes sense for me to put energy into that and to kind of see where that kind of creative seam leads, really.
And the last band that I was thinking of is At the Drive-In. I'm very sure you've heard that very often, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm a massive At the Drive-In fan. Like, I've been a fan of them since I was like 17 or something, and just like, they're one of those few bands that's just constantly at the top of my listening pile, and I just keep going back to over and over, and I never seem to get tired of them. But yeah, I think like Ellis is kind of the same. It's like kind of, yeah, top 5 band for him is between, I think all of us were either into At the Drive-In or one of the Splinter bands, or what have you. And it's kind of it's just whole back catalogue of all their material is great, and everything that came after At the Drive-In is great, and it's just so much to listen to and to be inspired by that. Yeah, it's just very easy to allow as much of that to get into our music as possible, because it's good.
Last question before we come to the infamous quickfire round at the end. I quote the colleagues from Noise, and in order to make it or to do it correctly, I look it up because I'm old. I don't remember everything. The colleagues at Noise wrote, "Too proggy for post-hardcore, too hardcore for prog." And when I was listening to the record, I thought of, okay, where's the prog part? First of all, do you agree with Noise? Is that something where it's like, okay, yeah, we can see that? Or do you say like, we ain't trying to be prog?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we are trying to be like progressive in a sense, but I think like the progressive element is not done in a way that I think a lot of other bands would try to do it. Like, I think, often when you
like Coheed and Cambria.
Yeah, like they I think especially earlier Coheed, when they were like very much kind of an emo band with a proggy emo band.
Yeah,
I think that's probably where there's a good comparison to draw, where it's like, it's not like distinct movements or kind of through composed things, or
not the typical
approaching it in
scale
quite an
stuff.
orchestral, or approaching things in an orchestral way where you've got counterpoints, and it's much more just like, what's an interesting thing to do here? Like, how can we put a bit more like life into this? Does having a strange time signature in this make it more exciting in some way than just playing it in 4/4 or 6/8 or something? Can we like does that level of extra energy add to the song or not?
Yeah, there's definitely been times where we've stripped out some of the more progressive stuff because we just thought that it just detracted from the song, right? Where we've had sections that were in various like time signatures, and we've just like, let's just change this to 4/4 because it's better. It's just better. Like, there's no point just trying to be clever for clever's sake. Like, do that stuff, but like kind of like, yeah, rein it in for just where it actually has an effect. And quite often there's things where we'll have like certain sections that are set up in, like, there's a good example, like in Lifetime, there's the first like part of that song is in 5/4. And then there's like, when it gets to the chorus, it changes to 4/4, and I think it never goes back. It just, from there on, it's just and you're hearing the same parts again. I think it's like the two sort of like verse sections are musically the same, but one's in 5/4 and the other's in 4/4, and it's just been, the rhythm's just been altered to fit. So it's like you kind of get this like step up in tempo that kind of, that's how the listener perceives it, is that the speed has increased. But what's actually happened is we've just like taken a beat out basically, and then you're just hearing the same thing again, but it's in a new context with this change, and it kind of it makes it feel fresh and makes it kind of move forward, but keeps it quite accessible, I think, at the same time, which is something that's again is kind of, I guess that's where we're kind of like trying to integrate the progressive elements into our music. Is I don't want to get away from it being accessible still, right? I want a blend of those two things. I want progressive music, but that has an accessibility to it, so that somebody could listen to it on the radio and be like, oh, that's just a cool song, but somebody who was into more progressive music could listen to it and be like, oh, it's an interesting song because it has these interesting things happening, and there's something kind of for those different kind of listeners in there. I think that's what really drew me to things like At the Drive-In, right? Because that's basically what's going on there. Is you've got, like us, they've got like quite simple structures where it's like a lot of the time it's verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus. Like a lot of our songs are exactly like that as well. But,
and they embellish it then, right?
Yeah, there's so much going on in the arrangements and just interesting guitar parts and things that just kind of give it that kind of progressive edge. But the average listener that listens to One Arm Scissor or something is not going to notice that. They're just going to enjoy it's a really cool song, right?
It is. But then that also works more on a complete full record level, right? Because I think, for example, let's take a band like The Fall of Troy, where the prog elements were even more pronounced and more audible than, for example, with At the Drive-In. There, sometimes it became too much. I think it was sometimes, although I love, for everybody who's listening and thinks I'm trying to diss The Fall of Troy, I love The Fall of Troy. I've basically got everything that they ever released, including some of the demos around here. But sometimes there was this notion of, okay, they sound too much like Dad's record collection, which they even said themselves. But with you, it's more of a attitude than a music thing, I would say. So, guys, of course, nobody leaves a Veil of Sound interview without having to stand and go through the infamous quickfire round at the end. You will always get two alternatives, and you have to choose and give a short explanation. Let's start off with the old stuff, because I'm the old bugger in this group here. Sick of It All versus Madball.
Sick of It All. I don't know that much Madball, so I'll go for the one I know.
Adam?
I don't know what either of those two things are.
So then at least your bassist saved your butt with the correct answer. It lost me.
Thank God Alex is here. He's the knowledgeable one. I just...
And now two bands who at first thought many people do not associate with hardcore because they also did a lot of other stuff. The Beastie Boys versus the Bad Brains.
Oh, Bad Brains. That's a really tough question, but Bad Brains.
Yeah, I think I'd go Beastie Boys just because I don't know Bad Brains.
We got.
Alex, you got a lot of.
Let's get
designed to just show up like how little I know about music.
Yeah, Alex and I spent a few hours, and we were like, okay, which questions do we give him so that he has to display? Yeah. If we talk about hardcore with a progressive edge, back in the 90s, people were always talking about new school versus old school. I'll give you my two favorite new school hardcore bands ever. Snapcase from Buffalo versus Refused from Umeå, Sweden. Sorry.
Refused. I think just so exciting. Like the shape of punk to come is like so good.
I'm wondering whether Adam is thinking or whether he's frozen.
I'm again I'm at a loss. So when people like come up to me at shows and like, oh, I want to talk to you about this band, I'm always like, dear,
you point at somebody else.
Like I'm so insular in what I listen to that like I always just go, here's Alex. He knows every band. He knows every album by every band.
Two British bands, so it's harder for you to deny knowledge or admit not knowing. Funeral for a Friend versus Gallows.
Not a big Goan either. I know Ali's a big Gallows fan, although I think Ali's also a big Funeral for a Friend fan. So
I like Funeral for a
flip
Friend.
a coin on it.
Hey! Yeah, it would be hard for me. If I think of career-wise, then I would say Funeral for a Friend. If I had to pick one record by one of those two bands, it would for always and ever be Grave Written by Gallows. That's just a 10 out of 10 punk album. I'll give you two loves of my life, two hardcore bands that I embrace with all of it. Boy Sets Fire versus Ignite. I know you might not come up with an answer, but I hope that you do.
I don't know either. No.
Oh wow, you've actually beaten Alex.
Let's take some. I'll take some notes for homework.
That is easy, that I beat Alex because I've been listening to hardcore for more than 30 years right now, so I should know a little bit. But Adam, could you choose? Do you know one of those two bands?
I don't, unfortunately.
Then the record to listen to is At the Drive-Ins After the Eulogy. It's like that to me was the quintessential post-hardcore album of all time. For the next two, Adam, you cannot weasel out of it because your insular listening habits will be acquainted with both bands. I'll, in both cases, give you two records by one band, and you have to choose. I'll give you Relationship of Command versus In Casino Out.
Oh, that is quite tricky because
no,
I love both of them. I go Relationship of Command, but
Relationship.
If I was stuck with that forever, I might regret it because I would miss In Casino Out. It's fantastic.
It's easy for me. Also, Relationship of Command because I'm like, if you get Iggy Pop to do background vocals that nobody hears,
but yeah. The story I heard was they were like, we know we're breaking up, so we're going to blow all of our budget on just getting Iggy Pop for 25 seconds.
It was something like that, yes. It was something like that. And now the Mars Volta. I'll give you Francis the Mute versus Deloused in the Comatorium.
Deloused, I think.
Yeah.
My favourite album is probably Bedlam, but yeah.
Yeah, my favourite's Amber Texture. Of the two, Deloused.
I think it depends a lot of when you got into the band. I mean, like for me, At the Drive-In was huge, so of course we had to listen to the Mars Volta, and Deloused came first, and I think it changed a lot of my listening habit. The last one, and I'm not sure if you choose. I'll give you two bands with one of those amazing voices who turned out to be a shithead, just like Morrissey, I'll give you Tool versus A Perfect Circle.
I think I like A Perfect Circle more than Tool. Somehow I've never clicked with Tool. They do a lot of stuff that I like. I really like doomy stuff. I really like that kind of cerebral prog, and somehow it's just never clicked for me. I know Ellis loves Tool. They're really high on his.
One of Ellis's favorite bands, isn't it?
So Adam, could you choose? Would you choose?
I'd just side with Ellis for ease. I'd go with Tool.
I think one of the reasons why it's harder to get into Tool nowadays is because they just got this rabid, angry as hell fan base that, as soon as you say something negative about the band, then they're like, oh, you just don't understand them. If you have a band which makes music like the Fibonacci sequence. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Then, in that case, I would also prefer A Perfect Circle. Clearer structures, easier to wrap your head around. But I have to say,
melodically, I like it a little bit more. I think that's the.
Yeah, it definitely has a lot more melody. I think that's
the thing I prefer about it.
Yeah, I mean, again, if I had to choose a band, it would be A Perfect Circle. I think. If I had to choose a record, it would always and forever be Anima by vibe tool, because I mean, like, if you have the balls to name a track "The Balls of Satan," "Die Eier von Satan," come on, you already got me. So, Adam, Alex, thanks for all your time. Thanks for the insight into the new record, and also for admitting sometimes that you don't know something. I also don't know everything. I'm just a little wheel. But everybody out there, as I said a few days ago, the two guys and their bandmates released Speculative Fiction through Europe, Church Road Records, in the States, Death Wish. You have no excuse not to listen to it. It's a really great record. It gives a lot of 90s, early 2000s vibes, and it's still 2025-ish. So everybody check it out. You will not be disappointed. Guys, I hope to see you on European stages sometime, sooner than later.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
So enjoy the rest of your evening, my friends. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye.